there is an NCAA case out there that has now been argued in front of the Supreme Court regarding the compensation that athletes are able to get. And this is a complicated case. And so I'm going to try to explain it in a relatively succinct and cogent fashion so that all of you out there can understand why this matters. So the case that is being argued right now and that will be decided in the weeks and months ahead by the Supreme Court asks a fairly simple question, although the resolution and analysis of that question is quite complicated from a legal perspective. But essentially the question is this: is it a violation of antitrust law for all of the different NCAA member institutions to be providing the same benefit to all of their athletes, particularly in sports that are producing massive amounts of revenue, i.e. football and men's basketball? What I mean by that is whether you are signing a scholarship offer with New Mexico or the University of New Mexico or Alabama or the University of Connecticut or Florida Atlantic University, and I'm just pulling random schools out of the alphabet here, or Eastern Michigan. In theory, the rough outline of what you get in exchange for a scholarship is the same. Now, every different conference now has different cost of attendance stipends and all these other different aspects, but essentially there is a uniform set of rules predicated on amateurism which govern what college athletes are able to receive in exchange for playing their sports. And what is really interesting is that essentially has boiled down to a big debate question that everybody has a strong opinion about, which is, should college athletes get paid in addition to the compensation that they receive right now? And there is certainly a value for the scholarship, for the grant in aids, for the room and board, the food, everything else. But should they get paid in excess of that? And really what this boils down to me, is the complicated factor of all athletes are not created equal. We know this, but in college, it is magnified in a substantial level. By which I mean this: the only two sports that produce any kind of significant revenue that exceeds the cost in all of college athletics are football and men's basketball. And right now, the money that those sports produce typically is going to subsidize all the other scholarship athletes that otherwise are playing sports, which would not pay for themselves. So if you are, and I'm just tossing out random sports, a male track star, or you are a female softball star, you may get a full ride to go to college, but the subsidy that you are receiving is effectively coming off of the work and talent of men's basketball and football players who are producing all the revenue that allows your athletic department to exist. And so the question that is out there is, how do you reconcile what is oftentimes a billion-dollar business in major college athletics for football and basketball with the fact that many of these kids are not receiving very much compensation relative to the dollars that they produce, while also recognizing that the majority of the athletes are receiving more compensation than their talents would reflect? And I don't think this really gets talked about in a very sophisticated and intelligent manner, but a lot of people's opinions change when they think about it from that context. In other words, a star quarterback at a big-time school, let's say he's at Florida or he's at Alabama or UCLA or wherever it is worth a lot more than the scholarship that he is going to receive. But a star pitcher in softball or diver in swimming is worth way less than what they receive. So how do you reconcile a system where there is extreme interest and extreme dollar value in a tiny minority of the overall athletes on a campus compared to the larger athletic structure? And I don't know that there is an easy solution here because, and this is another legal complication, Under Title IX, whatever you give to your male athletes, you're also required to give to your female athletes. So if, for instance, you give a stipend of $5,000 to every football player and every men's basketball player, you have to give it to every women's lacrosse player who's on scholarship and also to every men's swimmer. Everybody has to be treated the same, even though their overall talents are very different. It is a socialistic system that is in place that is designed to keep everybody artificially equal in overall college athletics. And they justify that by saying that college athletics are a part of the educational system at the university and are a mere attribute of the larger university community. So they're not a traditional business in the way that a NFL franchise or a Major League Baseball franchise would be. And so I know people out there want to have such strident and strong and aggressive opinions. Oh, pay the players, don't pay the players. And I know a lot of you out there are in that community because you want to make an argument on one side or the other. But what I am saying is the legalities of this are incredibly complicated. And add even more difficulty, every state is starting to put in place their own name, image, and likeness bill, which would mean that if you go to school in Florida, the rules that apply to you in Florida might be different than the rules that apply to you in North Carolina. And ultimately, I think what many people feel is that the NCAA rules as presently constituted are broken. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Johnny Manziel could not legally sell his autograph while he was playing football for Texas A&M. But if he signed a Sports Illustrated, let's say, with him on the cover in a class and handed it to a classmate, that classmate could immediately take that Sports Illustrated and put it on the internet and sell it for as much as he wanted. I think that strikes many of you out there as being unfair. Johnny Manziel not allowed to profit off of his signature, but every single other student on the campus who could get Johnny Manziel's autograph could theoretically sell it for as much money as he wanted. It's a really interesting question how that ends up being a rule. And I'm just using Johnny Manziel as an example because there was an autograph scandal that involved Johnny Manziel and being compensated for his signature. I think almost every sports fan out there would agree that if you have a signature of such a value that somebody wants to pay you for it, that should be permitted. I really do think almost everybody out there listening to me right now would agree with it. Similarly, A.J. Green, I believe it was, or was it Todd Gurley? Will you look it up and see which Georgia football player it was, Dub, who got in trouble for selling his bowl game jersey as well as his cleats? And he got suspended for that, and how ridiculous it actually was. Because how do you not own your cleats? How do you not own your individual jersey? How do you not have the ability to make that choice and sell it for whatever value you would like to unlock? And so as you break that all down, it was completely broken.
And by the way, Clay, that was Todd Gurley.
He got a 4-game suspension for selling his autographed jersey and his autographed cleats, which is crazy. He owned them. He should be able to sell those if he wants for a certain value. And I understand there's complexities about, what happens if some major booster wants to pay $100,000 for autographed sneakers or something like that. I understand the angle, but I just really don't care. That's a marketplace. If people have value, I think they should be able to sell their value to the highest possible bidder. That's me as a capitalist.